Shane Walters didn't plan on saving anyone that afternoon, he just wanted his daughter to laugh. "Higher, Daddy, higher," Kaylee giggled as he pushed her gently on the swing, her brown curls bouncing with every rise into the air. It was the only thing that still made her smile after her mom walked out 2 years ago. The playground had become their little escape from overdue bills and frozen dinners. Shane glanced at the worn soles of his work boots and tucked the frayed cuff of his uniform shirt into his jeans. Another double shift at the auto shop tomorrow. But today, he was just Dad. That's when he noticed her. A woman sat alone on the edge of the sandbox, her black heels kicked off beside her, arms wrapped tight around herself like she was holding something in. She looked like she didn't belong there. Her sleek navy pencil skirt and silk blouse stood out against the cracked benches and faded monkey bars. Her hair was pinned back in a low bun, but strands had slipped free, framing her face. And her eyes, her eyes looked like they'd just lost everything. Shane slowed the swing and glanced down at Kaylee. "Hey, sweetheart, can you stay right here for a second? I'll be just over there, okay?" Kaylee nodded, kicking her feet in the air again. "Okay. I'll count how many swings I can do." He jogged over to the woman, not sure what he was planning to say until he was standing in front of her. "You all right?" he asked, voice low, not wanting to scare her. She looked up, startled, then quickly wiped her face. "Yes, I'm fine." Her voice was tight. Controlled, but her eyes shimmered with fresh tears. "You don't look fine." She gave a short breath, almost a laugh. "Well, I'm not used to crying at playgrounds, so I guess I failed at keeping it together." Shane scratched the back of his neck. "You don't have to keep it together here." There was a pause. She looked him over and he could see the hesitation in her. Then, like a dam cracking, her shoulders fell. "I just lost someone I trusted," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Someone who betrayed me so deeply I don't even know what I'm doing right now." Shane sat beside her on the bench. "That sucks, I'm sorry." She let out a heavy breath, her eyes locked on the ground. "I gave him everything, and he was just using me." Shane glanced at Kaylee, still playing. "Yeah, I know how that feels." She looked at him, eyebrows raised slightly. "My ex-wife walked out when Kaylee was 2, said I was too poor, too much of a burden." He shoved his hands in his pockets. "So yeah, I get it." The woman blinked, something shifting in her face. "I'm sorry," he shrugged. "I'm not. I've got Kaylee, she's my whole world." They both looked toward the swing set where Kaylee was dragging her feet to stop. "She's beautiful," the woman said softly. "Thanks. She gets that from her mom." He paused. "The attitude, though." "That's all me." That finally got a real laugh out of her, a small one, but it was there. "I'm Shane," he said, holding out a hand. She hesitated, then shook it. Wren Maddox." Her hand was warm, her grip firm, but something about the way she looked at him made his chest tighten. Like she wasn't used to people asking her name unless they wanted something. "Wren," he repeated. "Pretty name." She smiled faintly. "Thanks." They sat in silence for a moment, just watching the kids play. The late afternoon sun painted the sky in soft oranges and pinks. "Do you come here often?" she asked, then winced. "That sounded like a bad pickup line," Shane chuckled. "It did, but yeah, almost every day after work." "You work nearby, auto shop on 5th, Walters Auto." "Just me and 2 other guys trying to keep old engines alive." "Walters," she repeated, then glanced at him. "You own it." "Barely," he said. "Inherited it from my dad. It's held together with duct tape and stubbornness." Wren gave him a look that was half amusement, half curiosity. "That's kind of impressive." He looked at her, really looked at her. There was something strong behind her sadness, like she was used to being in control of everything until she wasn't. "You don't look like you hang out at playgrounds much," he said. She laughed softly. I just needed somewhere no one would find me for a while." "Well, you found the right place. No one comes here except tired parents and kids with skinned knees." "Perfect," she murmured. Kaylee ran up then, her cheeks flushed. "Daddy, I counted 50. That's a new record." Kaylee turned to Wren. "Are you sad?" Wren blinked in surprise. A little. "Do you want to swing?" "Swinging makes me feel better." Wren's eyes softened. "I haven't swung in years." Kaylee grabbed her hand. "Come on." "I'll show you how." Shane watched, stunned, as Wren actually stood and let Kaylee tug her toward the swing set. She laughed, really laughed, as the swing wobbled beneath her. "I don't think I'm doing this right," she called out. "You're doing great," Kaylee shouted, pushing her gently. Shane leaned back on the bench, watching them. Wren looked lighter now, not fixed, not healed, but lighter. And in that moment, he had no idea that the woman he'd just comforted near the sandbox was one of the most powerful CEOs in the state. Or that she would fall for him, the broke mechanic with calloused hands and a 6-year-old daughter who believed in magic. All he knew right then was that her laughter was the best thing he'd heard in years. Wren returned to the swing set the next day, not because she meant to. Not because she had any real reason, but because her car somehow steered itself toward the quiet little park on the edge of the old neighborhood, where the grass grew unevenly, and the air smelled faintly of asphalt and cotton candy. She parked across the street, still in the same heels from that morning's board meeting, and told herself she'd only stay for 5 minutes, just to breathe, just to sit. But when she saw Shane pushing his daughter again, that same easy rhythm, the corners of her chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with stress or exhaustion. Kaylee spotted her first. "Wren," she squealed, jumping off the swing mid-air and running full force across the wood chips. Wren crouched without thinking, catching the child in a hug that nearly knocked her off balance. "You've got quite the tackle," she said, laughing. "I told Daddy you'd come back," Kaylee said proudly. "He said maybe you were just visiting." Wren raised an eyebrow at Shane, who was now approaching with a half-sheepish look on his face. "I didn't think you'd want to be ambushed by a 6-year-old, he said. "I've survived worse," Wren replied. "Besides, she's persuasive. I'll warn the Pentagon." Wren glanced down at Kaylee, who was now attempting to tie a blade of grass around her finger like a ring. "Is it all right if I sit for a bit?" Shane nodded. "Bench is yours." "Unless you want to join the jungle gym crowd." Wren followed him to the bench but didn't sit right away. "You always come here after work, usually. Gives Kaylee something to look forward to. And I figure if I sit long enough, someone will offer me a raise for surviving the day." She smiled faintly. "No offers yet," still holding out hope. He paused, then added, "You look different today." Wren blinked. "Different how?" "Less like you're about to break." She didn't answer right away. The wind picked up slightly, tugging at the hem of her blouse. Finally, she said, "I had to fire someone this morning, someone I used to trust." Shane leaned back. "Rough. He was embezzling for over a year. He looked me in the eye and lied about it again this morning." Shane let out a slow breath. "People'll surprise you, not always in good ways." There was a beat of silence before she added, "I thought he was my friend." Shane didn't offer her a platitude, didn't tell her it would get better. He just nodded, like he understood the shape of that kind of betrayal, and somehow that made Wren relax more than anything else could have. "Kaylee keeps a rock in her backpack," he said after a moment. Wren turned to him. "A rock?" "Yeah. She calls it her truth rock, says if you hold it while you talk, you can't lie." Wren tilted her head. "Does it work?" "Only on grown-ups." She laughed, a real laugh this time, one that caught her off guard and made her cover her mouth. Shane looked at her sideways. "You should think about getting one." "Maybe I will." Kaylee ran back over, holding a glitter-covered notebook. "Wren, want to draw with me?" Wren took the notebook gingerly, brushing glitter off the corner. "I haven't drawn in years." "That's okay. I'll teach you." As Kaylee sprawled out on the grass, Wren sat beside her and hesitated, then picked up one of the stubby crayons and began sketching. Shane watched from a distance, arms crossed loosely, the edge of a smile playing at his lips. Kaylee whispered something to Wren that made her pause. Then she looked up at Shane and called out, "Daddy, can Wren come to dinner?" Shane blinked. Wren glanced down at the drawing she'd been working on, stick figures holding hands beneath a crooked sun, and then slowly met his gaze. "It's okay," she said, standing. "She's just being sweet." Shane rubbed the back of his neck. "No, I mean, if you're not busy." Wren hesitated. She had emails to return, a PR disaster still unfolding, a finance team in meltdown over missing funds. But when she looked at the hopeful face beside her, and the man with oil-stained fingers trying not to look too eager, none of it seemed urgent. "All right," she said. "But only if I get to help cook." Shane's eyebrows lifted. "You cook," she smiled. "You'll see." They walked the short distance to Shane's apartment, Kaylee skipping ahead. The complex wasn't fancy, just a squat brick building with peeling paint and a crooked mailbox, but it was clean. Lived in. Inside, the modest kitchen was stacked with dishes and a grocery bag sat half unpacked on the counter. Shane cleared space quickly, apologizing as he shoved a cereal box aside. "Sorry, it's not fancy." "I didn't ask for fancy." Wren rolled up her sleeves. "What are we working with? Spaghetti and frozen garlic bread? Perfect." As they started boiling water, Wren asked, "Do you always cook for her after work?" "Every night, unless she talks me into cereal." "She's lucky." Shane looked over at her. "She keeps me grounded." "I'd probably live on vending machine burritos if she wasn't around." Wren nodded slowly. "I never had that." "What, burritos or someone to ground you?" She stirred the sauce. "Both." He didn't press. Instead, he handed her a wooden spoon and said, "Taste test." "You're the guest chef." She tried the sauce and tilted her head. "Needs a pinch of salt and maybe a tiny bit of sugar." "Sugar, trust me." They ate dinner squeezed around the small table, Kaylee telling stories between slurps of noodles. Wren listened, laughed, answered every question like it mattered. After the dishes were done, Shane walked her to the door. She paused before stepping outside. "Thank you for letting me join." He rubbed his hands together. "Anytime." Wren turned but stopped. "You don't ask questions. I figure you'll tell me what you want when you're ready." She met his eyes, something unreadable passing between them. Then she nodded once and walked to her car. Shane watched her go, the sound of Kaylee humming in the background. He hadn't planned on inviting her in. But seeing her draw with his daughter, stir spaghetti sauce like it mattered, it felt like something he hadn't known he needed. He had no idea who she really was, but he was starting to care anyway. Wren stood in the back of the crowded gallery, her arms crossed, eyes sharp as the press buzzed around the latest acquisition her company had sponsored. White wine shimmered in glasses, heels clicked against marble, and curated laughter floated like perfume. But her mind wasn't on the art or the investors. It was on the man who had taught her spaghetti sauce tasted better with a little sugar. She hadn't told anyone about Shane. Not her assistant, not her board, not even her therapist. It wasn't secrecy, it was preservation. The world she lived in twisted things. If they knew she'd spent a Tuesday night helping a mechanic dry dishes in a kitchen the size of her walk-in closet, they'd spin it into something transactional or scandalous. But it wasn't. It was real. "Wren," a voice called sharply across the room. She turned, fixing her expression into something polished. "Derek," she greeted flatly. He strode toward her with the same overconfident gait that used to charm her years ago. Tailored suit, watch glinting like a trophy. She had once trusted him with her company's finances. Now he was under investigation, though the lawyers insisted she remain publicly neutral until the auditors finished. "I see you're back to playing Queen of the Empire," he said, sipping his wine. "I see you're still pretending you're not a thief." He gave a humorless laugh. "It's cute how you think you've won." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. She simply turned her back and walked away, phone already in hand. Outside, the night wind tugged at her coat as she reached her car. She didn't drive home. Instead, she took a left toward the edge of the city, toward cracked sidewalks and a building with a rusted fire escape. Shane opened the door wearing a faded T-shirt and holding a basket of laundry. Wren blinked. "Is this a bad time?" He shifted the basket to one arm. "Depends." "Are you here to fold socks or steal my dinner?" She stepped inside without answering. The air smelled faintly of lavender detergent and something baking. Shane watched her for a moment. "You all right?" "No," she said quietly. He set the basket down. "Want to talk or just sit?" "Sit." She dropped onto the couch, legs neatly crossed, while he disappeared into the kitchen. When he returned, he handed her a mug of something warm and sweet. "Kaylee's spending the night at her cousin's," he said. "So you get my full, undivided attention." "Lucky you?" Wren took a sip, then looked at him. "I saw the man who stole from me tonight. Did you punch him?" "I wanted to. Should've," she exhaled, setting the mug down. "He still walks into every room like he owns it, like none of it happened." Shane sat on the opposite end of the couch. "He will until someone reminds him otherwise. That's the problem. In my world, people like him don't really lose, they just rebrand. You ever think about burning yours down?" She turned her head. "Excuse me, your world." "The one full of boardrooms and people who smile with knives in their hands. What if you just walked away?" She stared at him. "Not saying you should," he added, "but maybe you could. You've got options." No, she said after a moment. I have obligations, people who depend on me. A company with thousands of employees. He nodded slowly. Fair. She stood and wandered toward the window, arms wrapped tight around herself. I used to think if I built something big enough, strong enough, I'd finally be safe. That no one could hurt me if I stayed important. Shane leaned back, watching her. And I was wrong. She turned back to him. Do you ever want more than this? He shrugged. Define more. Money, power, status. He shook his head. I want Kaylee to feel secure. I want her to laugh every day. I want to wake up knowing I didn't turn into the kind of man who throws people away to get ahead. She was quiet. Then she crossed the room slowly and sat beside him. I don't know why it's so easy to talk to you, she said. Because I'm not trying to get anything from you. She looked up. What if I wanted to give something? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, fingers lingering just long enough to make her heart stutter. Then I'd say thank you, he murmured, but I'd still want to know why. Her lips parted, but the words caught in her throat. He leaned in, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath, but he didn't kiss her. I don't want to be something you run to when your world breaks, he said gently. I want to be a part of it if that's a door you're willing to open. Wren inhaled sharply. I don't know how. Then we figure it out together. She closed her eyes. I'm scared. So am I. When she looked at him again, the distance between them shrank until there was nothing left but the truth. She kissed him, not with the practiced confidence she gave at charity galas or fundraisers, but with trembling hands and a heart that had never learned how to be held without conditions. When they pulled apart, she whispered, I've never done this like this, without games, without control. Shane leaned his forehead against hers. That makes two of us. She stayed the night not in his bed, but curled on the couch beneath a blanket, her head resting against his shoulder, while he told her stories about growing up fixing cars with his dad and teaching Kaylee how to ride a bike. And for the first time in years, Wren didn't wake up before dawn to check her messages. She just breathed. And when she left that morning, she kissed his cheek and promised she'd come back, which she did, again and again, until the lines between her world and his blurred completely. And neither of them wanted them drawn back. The tension in Wren's penthouse was thick enough to choke on. I'm not going to hide him, she said coldly, her voice echoing off the glass walls of her office. And I'm not going to pretend he doesn't matter. Across the desk, Ellen, her chief of communications, clutched a glossy folder to her chest like it could shield her from the fury behind Wren's eyes. It's not about hiding, Wren. It's about optics. This gala is the largest media event of the quarter. Your stakeholders expect to see you with someone, aligned with your position. Wren's jaw tightened. You mean rich? Ellen didn't deny it. Wren turned away, staring out at the skyline. The city blinked back at her, glittering and cold. He's coming with me, that's final. Ellen hesitated. Then we need to prepare him. Media etiquette, wardrobe, press expectations. He can't walk in blind. He's not a child. No, but this world eats people alive if they don't know the rules. Wren exhaled. Fine, one prep session. But I'm not changing him. Later that evening, Wren stood in Shane's apartment, holding out a black garment bag. He looked at it like it might bite him. You're kidding. It's just a tux. That's not a tux, that's a mortgage in a zipper. She folded her arms. It's tailored. You'll look incredible. Shane eyed the bag again. Can I breathe in it? Barely, but that's fashion. He gave her a sidelong glance. You know this is your territory, right? Not mine. I know. And you're sure you want to drag a guy who uses duct tape on his bumper into a ballroom full of people who probably iron their money? She stepped closer, laying a hand on his chest. I've never been more sure of anything. He covered her hand with his own. Then I'll try not to embarrass you. You couldn't if you tried. The night of the gala arrived like a storm, bright, loud, and buzzing with tension. The venue was a historic museum transformed into a sea of crystal chandeliers and champagne towers. Cameras flashed the moment Wren stepped out of the car. But what made the crowd pause wasn't just her presence, it was the man beside her. Shane, in the tux she'd chosen, looked like he belonged in a Bond film. The sleeves fit perfectly, the jacket hugged his broad shoulders, and his expression was calm, unbothered, entirely himself. He leaned toward her as they entered. So far, no one's thrown me out. They wouldn't dare, she whispered. Inside, the room pulsed with chatter and polished smiles. Investors, politicians, and media figures turned to look. Wren's presence always drew attention, but the man at her side that was new, a woman in diamonds, approached, her voice syrupy. "Wren, darling, who is this?" Wren didn't hesitate. "This is Shane Walters." "My partner," Shane offered a polite nod. "Nice to meet you." The woman blinked, lips parting, clearly thrown off script. "And what do you do, Mr. Walters?" "I fix things," he said simply. There was a beat of silence before the woman offered a tight smile and drifted off. Wren turned to him, eyes gleaming. Perfect answer. Thought about saying bank robber, but figured I'd ease them in. As the night wore on, Shane held his own with quiet strength. He didn't speak unless spoken to, but when he did, his words had weight. He didn't pretend to understand the world around him, but he didn't apologize for it, either. And as Wren watched him laugh with the museum curator over vintage motorcycles, something clicked sharply into place. He wasn't just surviving the evening, he was grounding it. Outside on the balcony, later away from the noise, Shane leaned against the railing. "You all right?" she asked, stepping beside him. "I kept thinking someone was going to ask me which hedge fund I own." "Did it bother you?" He looked at her. "No. But I kept wondering if you'd notice how different this world is from mine." "I noticed," she said quietly. "And I don't care," he studied her face. "You say that now, but when the noise fades and everyone forgets this night, I'm still going back to my shop, still packing Kaylee's lunch. Still using paper towels for napkins." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a small, smooth object. He blinked. "Is that the truth rock?" she said, placing it in his hand. He laughed, shaking his head. "You thief. She gave it to me this morning. Said I'd need it." He held it gently, then wrapped his fingers around hers. "I love you." She stilled. "I love you, Wren, not because you're successful or powerful or brilliant, which you are, but because you let me see who you are when no one else is looking. And you saw me too." Her eyes burned. She didn't blink. "I love you," she said, voice breaking. "I didn't know I could, not like this." He kissed her slow and sure, the city glittering behind them like a blessing. 3 weeks later, the auto shop closed early. Kaylee stood between them on the cracked pavement, holding both their hands as Wren unlocked the doors to a new building across town. Sleek, modern, and twice the size of Shane's old garage, he stared at the sign above the entrance, Walters & Co. Restorations. Wren looked up at him. "It's yours." "Fully paid, no strings." He turned, stunned. "You bought me a business, you built the heart of it, I just upgraded the walls." He pulled her close. "You're insane," she grinned. "You love that about me." That weekend, they married in the park where they first met. Kaylee wore a flower crown. Shane wore his work boots under his tux. Wren wore her mother's ring, resized to fit her hand, and cried through the entire vow. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, it wasn't cameras or headlines that mattered. It was the way Shane held her like he'd never let go. It was the way Kaylee shouted, "We're a team now," and ran circles around them in joy. And it was the way Wren finally felt like she was home. Rain streaked the windows of the new Walters & Co. showroom as Shane stood near the front desk, shoulders tense beneath his button-down. He'd spent the morning reorganizing tools that didn't need organizing and checking appointment logs twice. The grand opening was a week away, the press already buzzing, but that wasn't what had him pacing. Wren hadn't come into the shop in 3 days. She'd called, sure brief check-ins, soft "I'll be home soon," and just swamped with board fallout, but Shane felt the shift. Something had changed. Something she wasn't saying. He wiped grease from his hands with a towel just as the door opened. Wren stepped inside, her coat soaked at the collar, cheeks flushed from the cold. She didn't smile. Shane stepped forward immediately. "What happened?" She took a breath, then reached into her bag and pulled out a folded paper. "I got offered a seat on the National Commerce Coalition. Full-time. DC-based." His chest tightened. "That's a big deal." "I didn't apply. They came to me, said my leadership through the embezzlement scandal proved I was the kind of voice they needed." He nodded slowly. "Do you want it? That's the problem." She looked up, eyes conflicted. "I did. A year ago, I would have said yes before they finished the sentence. Now, I can't stop thinking about Kaylee's school play next month, about the way the garage smells like coffee and cedar in the morning. About you, with your hands in an engine and your heart somewhere I never expected to find home." She crossed the space between them, pressed her palms to his chest. "I don't want to build a future that doesn't have you in it every day." He covered her hands with his, grounding her. "Then don't." Tears welled, but she blinked them back. "I'm scared I'll resent giving it up." "You're not giving anything up. You're choosing something else. And if you ever wake up one day and want that world again, I'll carry your bags to the plane myself." She laughed, watery and raw. "You'd hate DC." "Probably," he admitted. "But I'd show up anyway." She leaned in, forehead against his. "I want to stay. I want this. With you, with Kaylee, with busted carburetors and burnt toast. I want a life that feels like mine." His lips brushed hers, slow and certain. "Then stay." A week later, the grand opening drew a crowd that wrapped around the block. Reporters milled between restored classics and custom builds, snapping photos of the new logo gleaming above the bay doors. Wren stood beside Shane in a sapphire blue dress, a color that made her skin glow and her presence impossible to ignore. But her hand never left his. When a journalist approached, clipboard in hand, he asked the question everyone had wondered since the press release. "Miss Maddox, why transition from a Fortune-level CEO to co-owner of a restoration garage?" Shane tensed, but Wren simply smiled. "Because I spent years building empires that didn't know my name. Now I get to build something with someone who sees all of me. And I've never felt more powerful." Kaylee interrupted before the reporter could ask another question, tugging on Shane's sleeve. "Daddy, they're doing the cake. Can I have 2 pieces?" Shane stooped to her level. "Only if you give your speech first." She turned to the crowd, arms flung wide. "Welcome to our garage. My dad's the best fixer in the world, Wren makes the rules, and I get to be boss on Saturdays." Laughter rippled through the guests. Wren watched as Shane lifted Kaylee onto his shoulders, her hands gripping his hair, giggling as the crowd clapped. He caught Wren's gaze and mouthed, "You ready?" She nodded once, the kind of nod that sealed things. The shop lights dimmed for the celebration, and as the music started and guests drifted toward the food tables, Shane pulled Wren toward the lift platform, now repurposed as a dance floor. "You're dragging me into the spotlight," she warned. "Payback for making me wear a tux." She laughed, slipping her arms around his neck. "I'd do it again." They danced slowly, the smell of motor oil and frosting blending in the air. Around them, friends and strangers clapped, cheered, toasted to new beginnings. Wren leaned in, voice soft in his ear. "I didn't know what love looked like until I saw you holding a wrench and smiling at my daughter like she hung the moon. I didn't know it felt like this," he said. "Like choosing the same person every morning and still being surprised by them every night." As the music swelled, he dipped her gently, her laughter rising like a promise. The sun set behind the garage, casting golden light through the windows, and for the first time, the future didn't look like an empire to conquer or a race to win. It looked like this: a man with calloused hands and a heart that never rushed. A woman who traded power for peace and never looked back. A child who believed in truth rocks and second chances. They didn't need titles or headlines, just each other. And that was everything.